Hi, welcome everybody. So now we'll be starting the next session of short presentations chaired by Dr. Neeraj Goyal. He is an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at IIT Ropar. His research interest lies in computer architecture, and he has made some
Can't
remarkable
hear you. You're on
innovations
mute.
into the teaching of courses in computer architecture at IIT Ropar. He is also a member of the Compute Steering Committee. I welcome Neeraj. Over to you.
Thank you very much. So we can start the session with the first presentation. The first presentation is surveying the role of gamified MOOCs, augmented and virtual reality for engineering education. So if others are there, then they can start presenting.
A very good morning to one and all. I'm Deepti Preet Kaur. I'm an assistant professor in Chitkara University Institute of Engineering and Technology, Chitkara University, India. And I will be presenting a short presentation on surveying the role of gamified MOOCs, augmented reality, and virtual reality for engineering education. The other contributors for this work are Vijayan Sharma and Jatin Singla. They are the students at Chitkara University Institute of Engineering and Technology from Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering. Now the context. Engineering domain has seen a rise in technological developments at an unprecedented rate during past 3 decades. Emerging technologies find their use case in multiple industries, also impacting the engineering education. Educators are adapting to these advances as well as refining their pedagogy so as to better inculcate the developments into their curriculum and to enhance the acquired knowledge amongst their students. Nowadays, game-based learning, MOOCs, blended learning, augmented and virtual reality-based learning are some of the trends that have been successfully used for educational purposes. Recently, the outbreak of COVID-19 has subsequently resulted in pandemic situation across the world, prompting the transference of education from regular mode to online. The use of digital platforms for e-learning and use of educational technologies for imparting professional education has been rising since then. Now, this presentation looks at the effectiveness of using these technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, gamification, MOOCs, and blended learning in the teaching learning process of engineering education. There will also be focus on various challenges involved in their implementation and their future prospects. Now, what is game-based learning? Games have the potential to create a more versatile environment for learning in a classroom. Generally, the term serious games is used for a specific purpose of learning, which is different from entertainment games. Serious games aid to learning in students and develop their domain-specific knowledge. The approach edutainment means education through entertainment is followed in game-based learning. Let's compare some serious games with entertainment games. Let's take an example. There is a game Underground. It is used to train the surgeons in the safe environment. The advantages of using such game is that for a hospital environment, serious games cost less as compared to simulators. As there is no real object involved, surgeons can practice more and more till they are well prepared. So that means the focus is on to improve the learning in the students. Rather, in case of entertainment games, the focus is to have fun. Now, let's talk about the user experience. In case of serious games, the tasks are there for problem solving. And in case of entertainment games, the rich experiences are preferred. The motivation for serious games is intrinsic because it is reward-based system in case of games. That means the users, they try to get rewards for aiding to their learning. That means the intrinsic motivation is there. Rather, for entertainment games, the extrinsic motivation is there. So this is how the serious games are taking over in the education for learning purpose. Let's take an example. This is an educational game. This has been used to make the students learn how to build circuits. So this kind of games can be used and it can aid to the learning as well as motivation of the students. Now let's talk about MOOC. MOOCs are massive open online courses constituting the traditional courses with filmed lectures, question statements, readings, and summaries, and are available online to the masses. MOOCs are playing important role in today's time when regular classroom teaching has come to a halt due to pandemic situation worldwide. These help tutors for their professional development as well. The structure of a typical MOOC. It's massive, means classes may consist of up to 1 lakh students. It's open, means registration is open to anyone around the world. It's online, means the course is taken completely online, and it's a course. That means it's similar to college courses, but doesn't offer credits. But sometimes in college curriculums, there may be some credits involved with such courses. So MOOCs play an essential role in distance education by offering a platform for individuals to interact, study, and share their opinions. These are open source platforms where data is available publicly for self-learning. Augmented reality. It is an amalgamation of real world with the graphically generated virtual environment. Therefore, we can say that technology as well as human connection is available in AR. An AR system facilitates the visualization of hidden phenomenon in engineering processes. Use of AR enables long-term memory retention in students and improves the physical task performance. It has 3 characteristics. It combines the real and virtual objects in real environment. It is interactive in real time, and it is registered in 3D by rendering the virtual content which is placed with respect to the real. So what is the need of augmented reality? So if a teacher is asking a student whether the student is able to understand the concepts, then this is the answer from the students nowadays, that it would be great if the student is able to interact with the content or visualize the concept. Sometimes for theoretical topics, it is not possible to have a hands-on experience. So augmented reality helps in those cases where lab experimentation is not available. So in case of augmented reality in education, the user is capable of interacting with the objects and observe the world through AR-enabled device camera. As we can see here, the markers means some predefined images can be scanned through a camera, can be identified as the location where virtual content has to be overlaid. And in this way, some additional information in the form of virtual content can be made available to the user. This is a real-time example of augmented reality in engineering education that we are following at our campus. The students are made to scan some images. These are the subjects related to control system engineering, and the students are able to visualize the response of a system. Now, what is augmented and virtual reality and what is the relation between them? Now, let's talk about the Milgram's reality virtuality continuum. On the left-hand side, as we can see of the screen, the environment is real. And on the extreme right-hand side, the environment is virtual. In midway lies the augmented and virtual reality. In case of augmented reality, the real world is augmented with virtual data. Graphically generated virtual content is made available to the user in addition to the real environment. And in case of augmented virtuality, the simulated virtual environment is actually added with some real objects. So this is how they form the mixed reality space. Now let's talk
Dr.
about
Deepti, how many more slides? You're almost stepping over the time.
I will go through the slides quickly. So virtual reality is achieved through the use of computational technology to create and simulate a virtual environment and placing the user inside that experience. This technology is capable of empowering huge gatherings of students with each working at different locations and making them understand the concepts easily. And VR is useful for training involving risk of life, such as fire safety training, electrical engineering lab work, etc. So this is an example how electrical engineering circuits can be operated by the students through the use of head-mounted devices in the virtual environment. So blended learning means we will integrate these technologies in the classroom. So gamification of MOOCs and game-based augmented virtual reality setups are there during past few years. So through blended learning, such as augmented reality and serious games, proficient learning can be achieved by the user. And it is easy for the teachers to inculcate this technique in their pedagogy. So when compared, we find that there are many application areas of augmented reality, such as in computer engineering labs, embedded system lab. There are many advantages, like they are easy to use, they facilitate memorization and recall, they are better for learning performance in the students, and they enable long-term memory retention. But there are few challenges involved with each technology, like for augmented reality, some expensive development is involved. Mishandling of costly AR can be done by the students, and difficulties are there in keeping up the superimposed data. Likewise, for gamification and MOOC, there are many application areas in all the fields of engineering. Advantages are they have increased participant learning, the learning opportunities for everyone. It's a self-paced learning. But again, there are some challenges like evaluation and assessment is computer graded. MOOCs doesn't provide any active feedback due to large number of students, and sometimes lack of direct teacher-student interaction can create a problem to the students. Virtual reality again has many application areas in all the fields of engineering education. Many advantages, like they increase the student engagement. There are complex concepts that can be easily understood by the students. Again, the challenges involve expensive development, complex technology, and lack of standardization. And it also deteriorates human connection. Likewise, for blended learning, nearly any field in education as a whole can be catered by this technology. And most important goal of blended learning is to combine the methods used for face-to-face interactions and the online models efficiently. Advantages involve better lecture time utilization, improvement in learning curve, better student results, easy for teacher instructors to inculcate this technique. But again, the problems involve acquiring software and hardware technologies for the blended learning can be costly, and cognitive load may remain unaddressed. Teachers over delivering and students not matching the pace. This can be the problem with the blended learning. So the conclusion and future scope for this work is that various technologies, as discussed, have been tested and proven to be beneficial in engineering education and as a whole in the education. Incorporating these techniques into the teaching pedagogy can prove to be an effective tool for achieving enhanced student learning, improved motivation, and also the reduction in cognitive load of the students and orchestration load of the teachers. The technologies such as learning through games, MOOCs, augmented and virtual reality will be helpful to bring out the change in imparting engineering education, even during these times like COVID-19 pandemic. The use of these technologies is also in context with the Play Integrated Learning Initiative as announced by the Government of India. So that was all about this presentation. These are the references used for the work. Thank you. Any questions?
If there is any question, you can write in the chat box or Q&A. Okay, since there is no question, and also we are little delayed by the time, so we'll move on to the next presentation.
Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Deepti.
Thank you, sir.
The next presentation is enhancing the learning process, engineering on virtual platform. Authors are Pranja Bhatt, Anita Sherwani, and Ramesh Babu. If they are present, they can share the screen. And Dr. Deepti, you may have to disconnect the screen sharing so that they can share.
Good noon, everyone. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'd like to thank ACM Compute 2020 for giving us this great opportunity to shape our tiny thought into a structured idea. Today, I'll be presenting our paper on behalf of my team. I'm a student, fourth year student from enhancing the learning process, engineering on virtual desktop, tablet, or a smartphone. The first engineering on virtual platforms. As we all are aware that education is now completely broad. COVID-19 pandemic, virtual learning is playing a vital role in the educational sector by enabling students to obtain the knowledge and skills sitting right at home. Not only does this ensure the safety of the public, saves time, money, and effort, but also helps promote self-learning among students. Technology is growing at a rapid rate. It is constantly being developed, altered, and improved upon. It seems like more and more technology is changing almost on a daily basis. So, making the best use of this technology will help people, especially students, gain better communication knowledge and learn through new methods. Taking into consideration our fields like computer science and information technology, virtual platforms do play a vital role. Our solution to enhance this process of learning is known as virtual labs. So, what is virtual labs? Well, the virtual labs is a web based platform designed to improve learning experience and understandability. It forms a hub for all the resources required to understand, analyze, and absorb the concepts by the students. We have concentrated on three main features which would form the backbone of an organized and structured study material for an aspiring tech student. Virtual Labs provides easy and clear explanations of the theory concepts involved. The concepts are designed perfectly in line with the syllabus. Virtual Labs has inbuilt code editors wherever required with the embedded test cases while also considering user defined ones. The editors are attached to the theory concepts the problem involves, which helps students understand better. Virtual Labs comes with two kinds of such supporting references, them being quiz at the end of each module to check the understanding of each student, videos attached to each topic for a better picturization and increased understanding. There are existing research that has been done on bringing this teaching and learning methodologies to virtual platforms. Virtual science labs for school students have been put into use in foreign countries. Looking into all these works that have already been done over a period of time, we aim to overcome their drawbacks or limitations and to take in the advantages by further improving them. So, how is our proposed solution better compared to other platforms? So, platforms like MOOCs have courses on each subject with detailed explanations. No doubt they are very good and they a lot considering students' knowledge, but they do not always coincide with the curricula and thus create confusions. They have 4 to 8 hours and even weeks long courses on each subject, which makes the entire content confusing for students. Subtopic of a subject. Whereas the account of the curricula and each topic is in line with the Udemy, etc., required registering separately for each of the interested courses. Whereas in our system, it requires registration only once for the portal by entering the current semester and their USNs, which makes the entire content for that semester accessible for the student. The existing works are not regularly being maintained and thus contents have become outdated. One such example is a similar platform, also known as Virtual Labs, was developed in 2018. So, whereas Virtual Labs is freshly designed, so it has all the contents which are added recently, and also it's been constantly monitored and maintained. Platforms like LeetCode, HackerRank, etc., provide great code editors and have thousands of interesting and challenging questions, but they do lack in connecting theory concepts with programs. Whereas Virtual Labs, theory concepts and programs go hand in hand, which keeps the information structured and handy for students. This doesn't say that our solution is the best, but it does take out some of the disadvantages from all the existing platforms and does add a lot of advantages over them. So, this is our system design, which is divided into multiple layers. The first layer being application layer, which interacts with user and forms the bridge to the system. It includes two separate interfaces, one for the students and the other for the teachers. Teachers will be allowed to upload the materials and resources, whereas students will have the access to them. The second layer being the authentication and session layer manages the user sessions and their authentications while logging in. The main business logic layer provides all the information that is to be made available for the users. It manages users, compilers, and quizzes. The last layer, which is the most important layer, holds the data, the contents of the website, students, and teacher details. We have used HTML, CSS, and JavaScript for the front end. PHP forms the backend, and data is stored in the MySQL database. So, how does our features work? The quiz is enabled with the automatic evaluation and score allotment using the metrics from the database. Code editors are in fact specially designed compilers for each topic in different languages like C, C++, Java, Python, whatever is required for the curriculum. Various videos, links, and study materials are embedded wherever required in the website, and also teachers will be able to add them while teaching or while updating the system also. So the future works that can be like future enhancements that can be done is we could expand our virtual labs to include other fields or branches such as EC, EEE, etc. We could also bring in AR and VR concepts, which would make visualizations and picturizations better. Our website is called Virtual Labs, is up and running. We have hosted the entire project on Heroku, which is the cloud hosting platform. These are some of the screenshots from the website. The cards are link holders of different subjects of students' current semester. The subtopics are equipped with videos and code editors with complete theory explanations and details to compile, execute, or generate test cases. So I also have a demo of the website which is running. I'd like to show them. So this is a student. So it talks about queues. So we have a supporting video for that. This is a theory concept, and the compiler is embedded. The students are able to write code here, and they can add their custom input or they can run and test it. So this is also a quiz wherein after submitting, the scores will be listed. So thank you. If there are any questions, we are open to take them.
Thank you, Prajna. It was a nice project. Yes, questions, please. Have you built it from the scratch, or you have used some of the components which were already existing, or you have integrated with the websites like some other websites for compiling code?
We have built it from the scratch, but whereas for compilers, we have taken some of the APIs that were available on the internet.
Okay, okay. So one more question, that have you compared it with the existing virtual labs? So for example, in yesterday's sessions, you have seen there were multiple virtual labs or done by various IITs, and it's set together one project. So can you compare it with your project with them?
Sir, I have seen a couple of them, wherein, as I told, one was developed by Government of India itself in 2018. That's not maintained. So I have just visited that and checked into that. But this syllabus is not constantly updated. So in that way, ours is freshly done. So it completely aligns with the syllabus. Whereas with the other virtual labs, what I have seen is it doesn't have exactly what we have planned it. Like we have each video or code editors for each of the subtopics, and it is clearly understandable. In the perspective of student, if we consider, we as a student, I can tell this because we sit in class and we listen to the teachers, but whereas when we come back and we want everything in one place for our studies, so or studying for exams or anything, we cannot where we can just go and read or glance through the concepts, or if people prefer, yeah. So I think in this matter we can compare it with this and tell ours is better.
Okay. So yeah. Mm, thanks. It was a good presentation. So now we can move on to the next one. The next presentation is
Thank
a
you, sir.
preliminary study of gender difference in participation rate in competitive programming contests. So I welcome the presenters, and they can share the screen and start their presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible. Please.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Oindrila Banerjee. I hope you can see my screen. So today I'll be presenting our paper, which is titled "A Preliminary Study of Gender Difference in the Participation Rates in Competitive Programming Contests." So basically, our paper is nothing but it's a very preliminary step towards a study on the gender difference in participation rates of women in programming contests. We started off with this paper by assessing a few survey and reports which were done before, like a report in the year of 2019 done by NASSCOM and McKinsey revealed that only 26% of the engineering graduates are employable in India. And if we consider some recent surveys, precisely the employability report provided by Aspiring Minds, and if we compare its data provided to us in the year of 2016 with the data provided to us in the year of 2019, it points out that not only is the employability rate still low, but also the number of employable women have declined over time. If I can be a little bit more precise about that, in the 2016 report provided by Aspiring Minds, it said that 2.71% of women graduates were eligible for product-based companies, and that number decreased to 2.54 in the year of 2019. Similarly, in the year of 2016, again, according to the Aspiring Minds report, the percentage of women graduates that were employable was 17.5% for service-based companies, and this percentage declined to 15.5% in the year of 2019. Thus, here we are today with this paper trying to assess and address question as to if there is indeed a gender gap in the participation rate of women in coding contests. And if there is a gender gap, why is it there in the first place? At first we thought that because a lot of hackathons and everything, they take place in different places, so people have to travel to different places to actively participate in them. But in our case, our data was taken from a series of contests that was conducted online. And thus here in this paper, we would be analyzing the data that we received from the series of contests, and we'd be taking a very small step towards realizing this gender gap. Moving on to the methodology, our data was collected over a period of 6 months from a contest named PB Hustle, which was conducted in Dayanand Sagar College of Engineering itself on the online coding platform called Codeforces. And this data, we collected this data mainly from the CSE and ISE departments. A little background info about the Codeforces platform and also the contest is that Codeforces is an online coding platform, and it's a platform where students can assess their coding skills. This platform is similar to a lot of famous platforms that we know of, like HackerRank, HackerEarth, Geeks for Geeks, LeetCode. And here in those platforms, several hiring contests take place. Also about the contest, like I said, it was conducted in the Anand Sagar College of Engineering and on the Code Forces platform. All of these contests were timed, and the questions were set by the students of the Anand Sagar College Engineering itself. And all these questions, they were taken from contests that had previously given questions for hiring. And thus we chose to collect this data because this data set, this contest actually, it imitated the environment, which is similar to hiring contests that take place, which is why we thought that this data set was a good choice for our paper. And this contest, it wasn't just open to only CSE and ISE branches, I should mention that. It was open to students from all years and all branches. And we did get students from other branches as well. However, due to the low number of participation rate, their data was discarded. And we first thought of concluding the female winners versus the male winners in this paper. But as we started analyzing the data that we had received, we realized that not only was there an absence of female winners in the data that we had collected, but also the number of female participation was continuously low in all the contests that we have collected and not discarded. However, even though we can say that the number of female students that were enrolled in the CSE and ISE departments were also less than the number of male students enrolled in the CSE and ISE department. And in our data, like I said, that it was open to all the students from all branches and semesters. We did have participants, but since we're considering only the ISE and CSE departments, all the females from ISE departments were only from the 4th semester, whereas all the male participants from ISE as well as the male and female participants from CSE were from 2nd, 4th, and 6th semester. And here you can see the tabulated form of the data that we collected over a period of 6 months from, again, PB Hustle contest. What I should mention here is that we had a larger number of contests. These were not the only contests that we had, but again, there was a less number of participation rate, and thus we limited our data only up till a significant number of participants. So the tabulated form that you can see here is not the entire data set that we collected, but the limited data set that we chose to keep. And here in the tabulated form, it is very much visible that the participation rates of women from both ISE and CSE branches are much lower compared to the male participation. There is thus a lack of female participation from both ISE and CSE department. And at least from this data, it is pretty clear that there is indeed a gender difference. At first, we proceeded with our null hypothesis that the number of female participants would be equal to the number of male participants. However, like I said, when we collected the data and when we started analyzing our data, it pointed otherwise. As you can see in the data, that the number of female participants are always lower compared to the number of male participants. If I can get a little bit more specific, only 0.4% of these participants are there from ISE department for female, and then almost about 1% of female from CSE department are present. Thus, there is a comparatively big difference in the participation rates of female from both ISE and CSE departments. The limitation that we had to our data was that it was only collected from the Anand Sagar College of Engineering. So if we can come to a conclusion, it would only be restricted to our college, and we won't be able to give a concrete conclusion about the entire community. And it was collected only from the 2 branches, which was computer science branch and computer science and engineering branch and information science and engineering. And we cannot come to a concrete conclusion, like I said before, from this data set. However, we have a tentative conclusion that the participation rate of the female is indeed much, much less than the participation rate of the males in competitive coding contests. Thus, our future approach is that we intend to contribute towards a similar multi-institutional study along with ASIM's collaboration, so that we can come to the conclusion and we can come to a concrete conclusion that this is not just persistent to a few colleges, but this is going around almost all the colleges in India. So just to basically come to the conclusion that the gender difference indeed exists. And also, our research, through this multi-institutional study, our research community would become aware of this and obviously gain a much, much deeper insight into this issue. And also, if there are any underlying issues that are there, those will also come into light, and we'll be able to figure out a way to come out of this gender gap issue. Thus, our paper is a very preliminary step towards a further research on this significant topic. Here are the references to the here are the references list that we took for writing our paper. And we'll take your questions now.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for this presentation as well as a good study to start with. So one question we have in the chat box from Venkatesh Raman that.
Excuse me, sir, can I stop sharing my screen then?
Yep, please.
Okay, thank you.
So Venkatesh is asking whether the study should have been done in terms of proportion instead of absolute numbers. So yeah, what is your comment on that?
Yeah, I think my teammate already replied to that in the chat box.
Okay, so another thing, so that I also have two observations from the numbers. So one observation is that information science students participated less. The other thing is girls participation is less, so but it is more in CSE. So
yes.
Do you have any reason behind? Did you investigated why girl students were participating less and why?
One reason could be that that the community that was organizing these contests was based in the computer science department. So maybe the reason could be the amount of outreach.
Okay, and what could be the reason behind low participation of girl students, female students?
We haven't come to conclusions regarding the reasons for low participation. This study was to investigate if there is indeed a difference in the participation rates. So once we get more data, once we conduct a multi-institutional study, maybe we can come up with some surveys and come to more concrete conclusions on why this gap exists.
That would be more interesting conclusion as well as a good contribution in the sense that how can we remove this gap?
Absolutely, sir. Yes.
Okay. So there's another comment that actually the number of female students getting enrolled in engineering is much lesser than the males.
Yeah, but I think the numbers are still higher in computer science and information science when compared to other branches of engineering.
Okay, yeah, that we can see from your slides. Yes, so the numbers are decent enough to we can for the comparison as well as to see the participation. Okay, so if there's no more questions, then we can thank the speakers as well as the others. So virtual thanks. Maybe now now we can, I can give the session to organizers, and then they can take it from here.
Looks like we are done with this session. So thanks to all the speakers for such wonderful presentations. Thank you, Dr. Neeraj, for chairing this session. A note to all the participants that the feedback form for the Compute conference is posted in the chat. Kindly fill the form. The next session regarding multi-institutional initiatives will start from 2 p.m. So we'll go for a lunch break. Thank you. We'll meet at 2 p.m.